As
Mrs. Kennedy.
Ms. Kennedy said, my name is Rainey. Like the weather, it is my real name. We are part of NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. It's a national organization, it's grassroots. There's an organization for each county in the state of Pennsylvania and going on to counties outside of this state. Our goal is to make the topic of mental illness more something that you can talk about with friends. Something you can talk about, more a part of the community. We are run by both people with mental illness and family members. I myself am a family member. My mother was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 14 years old. So you guys are, what, 16, 17?
Yeah.
So during my high school years, your prime right now, prime time of your life, I had to deal with my mother's symptoms, and it affected my school life in many ways. Anyway, moving on. The topic today is ending the silence. We want to break that silence, that barrier, about talking about mental illness. We want to make it something that we're all willing to just open up about. Okay? One disclaimer. We're not doctors. We're not teachers. We're not counselors, we're not social workers. We're just here we're just people giving our own lived experiences about what it means. Okay?
My ADD makes it impossible to focus. Don't they get it? I get depressed about everything. No one feels like I do.
My brother is autistic. No one knows what that's like.
I've been bipolar my whole life. It's so hard with friends and family.
I have anorexia. I can't tell anyone.
I get so anxious. I can't stand it. No one ever seems to care.
My OCD annoys everybody. I don't have any friends.
I'm suicidal. Would anyone care if I were gone?
I know even sometimes I feel the same way.
Yeah, that's totally enough.
Thanks for having my back.
Not gonna lie, this is the first day we've ever worked with this video before, or these PowerPoint slides. It's been completely changed for us. But this is a video, honestly pretty good, right? Had a good, looked kind of professional, didn't it? All that kind of turn table thing, and all that kind of stuff. It was made by high school students in California. And they have a competition in California, which I'll get into a little bit later on, as to making videos related to this topic, to make it more open and relatable to people. Just as a general question, all hands down, or hands up. If you know someone in your family or a friend that is dealing with a mental illness, just raise your hand. Look at that. That's 100%. That's more than what the country believes. The country thinks it's about 20 to 25%. So that's quite something else. I'm going to move on, but that's excellent. The reason why I love that's 100%, is it shows that nobody in here is alone. When we talk about mental illness, when we talk about depression, when we talk about schizophrenia, we talk about anxiety disorders, nobody is alone in here. We're all here to be on each other's side. What is mental health? We all have it, whether it's healthy or whether it's not. Healthy mind is feeling good and enjoying life, going out, doing sports, reading, being positive about many things throughout the day. Hey, we all have stress, right? But can you handle it in a productive manner and get through to the next day and then see that sun rise again? Mental health can be maintained with good habits, but even with those good habits, you may find that mental illness may come in through the family, in one way or another. What is it? It's an illness, just like diabetes. Except diabetes is a physical illness. Mental illness is more emotional, mental. Diabetes, now let's look at that, for example. What is diabetes a disorder of? What organ of your body does it affect? Does anybody know?
Blood sugar, and I think it has to do with the liver.
Close. You're right, blood sugar. That's a different organ. Pancreas. Right. Very good. It's your pancreas. Now, mental illness, just like diabetes is a disorder of an organ of the body, mental illness is a disorder of an organ in your body. What organ is that?
Brain.
The brain. You know? If you have a disorder of your brain, think of how that would affect the way that you think, the way that you act throughout the day, the way you get through the normal things. Just waking up and getting out of bed, resetting that alarm may be an issue. It's common, as we can tell. Everybody raised their hand, but it's treatable too. And when I say the word mental illness, when anybody says mental illness, everybody say the words mental illness.
Mental illness.
It's nobody's fault to have a mental illness. It's not a crime. It's not a terrible thing. Keep in mind also that with statistics out there now, it's not dangerous or violent to be someone with a mental illness. It's more likely, if you have a mental illness, that violence will be put onto you than you will be a criminal yourself. Okay? People with mental illness can live a happy, healthy, and productive life. We'll go over some of these stats. Any mathematicians in here? You like math? Guys like math? Okay. Look at these first couple of ones. 20% of youth from ages 13 to 18 experience a mental health condition each year. 20% your age group. Okay? That's fine. Go down a couple more. 1 in 4 adults in the U.S. experience a mental health condition each year. That's the same scenario where they're experiencing a mental health condition. But what is the difference? To the math folks, 20% to 1 in 4.
5 more percent.
5%, exactly. Is that a big difference? No, it really isn't. So the symptoms or the experiences of mental health conditions between teenagers and adults, the rate of it isn't that different. Okay? 50% of youth ages 8 to 15 with a mental health condition don't receive the treatment that they need because they don't know they even have it. Yes?
It says they experience a health condition each year. Is it a different mental health condition as it goes away in 8 years? Or I'm confused.
Well, if you have a mental illness, then you may have, a health condition might be a symptom related to that. So you're going to have it more than just one time in a year. But that 20% is what it is for teenagers. And you can have more than one diagnosis of a mental illness. You don't just say, okay, this person has depression. They can have more than one. Okay? No. Glad you asked. Stigma is the biggest reason people don't seek help. Anybody heard the word stigma before? Okay? Do you have an idea of what it means?
Like a stigma is like this generalization that it's either like society doesn't think it's good or like it's like appropriate to talk about.
Very good. I really like that. That's a great definition. I couldn't have come up with it better myself. Great job. It is a stereotype. It is a label that you put on someone because they're different. You don't want to interact with them in a certain way. Anybody see the movie Easy A? Years ago? Okay. All right. In that movie, the main character decides to make a statement by relating herself to a certain character in the book from the Scarlet Letter. Anybody read the Scarlet Letter? You're reading it now? Okay. Well, you got to the A part, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What does the A stand for?
Adultery.
Adultery, right. How does the community react to her now that she has that mark on her?
They don't appreciate it.
They don't appreciate her. Do they even talk to her? No. Yeah, they talk about her and say, oh, that Jimmy, he's oh, Susie, terrible, terrible. Imagine doing that in the hallway right now. That's stigma. Walking down, let's say you have a mark on you, that you have a mental illness, and nobody even says hi. Terrible. All right, moving on. Common mental health conditions. Here's just a very small amount of mental illnesses that may happen within these ages, 13 to 18. Anxiety disorders, as you can tell, is the most common out of these 5. Depression is up there. Substance abuse and addiction, yes.
Which one would OCD fall under?
Which one? That's a completely different mental illness. Yeah, that's not actually on this, but it's, I think it's 1 million students in the United States are diagnosed with OCD. So that is a mental illness. I'm glad you brought it up. ADHD is up there. That's very common, bipolar. Substance abuse or addiction isn't a mental illness, but it's those are a symptom or a warning sign of somebody with a mental illness or maybe having difficulties. Substance abuse. Okay? One other mental illness that's not mentioned in there is schizophrenia. The reason why is because in your age group, about 1 in 40,000 people have schizophrenia. But once you turn 18, once you graduate from high school, it's much more common. It's 1 in 100. So the math guys, they can see that's a big difference. 1 in 40,000 and 100. All right, so we're talking about the warning signs. What are some warning signs? If you're feeling very sad or withdrawn for more than 2 weeks, that's a sign of a form of depression or a sign that you're not getting the help that you need. It's different for adults than it is for children, for teens. Teens, it may last for 2 weeks. For my mother, with her bipolar, she would have weeks to months where she wouldn't do activities outside of the house. She'd spend the day, her best friend was really our dog. In the sense that it'd stay by her bed. You wanted to do activities. I was as active as I could be in high school. I wanted to be in the choir. I wanted to audition for things. I wanted to be involved in after-school activities. But a lot of times I had to say no because I knew there was my brother at home. And with my mom being in bed, she wasn't always the best babysitter. So anyway, those are examples of being sad or withdrawn. Severe, out of control, risk-taking behaviors, that's very common. Bipolar disorder, there's the depressive side and there's the manic side as well. Excessive spending. My mother was called the couch lady for a while at IKEA because we'd buy a couch, she wouldn't like it, send it back, buy another one. Kept on going back and forth. Excessive spending. Sudden overwhelming fear for no reason. I'd be in a conversation with my mother about, let's say, buying a dog or getting a new dog, and the waterworks would start coming, and I wouldn't know how to assist it. At this point, NAMI wasn't in my life, and it wasn't in my mom's. Severe mood swings that cause problems in relationships, drastic change in behavior, personality, or statement habits. These are all warning signs. Extreme difficulties, concentrating, staying still, intense worries or fears. Let's see, make sure out of all of these that you don't keep these thoughts that you may have or that others have a secret. We're here to end that silence, to break it up, talk it out. So what can we do? As I just said, talk. Are there other things that you think that we as a community, this is out on the table, out to everybody, what can we do as Bucks Countyans, as Pennsylvanians, as human citizens to help this situation?
Not stereotype or label.
Not stereotype or label, right? Don't go with the stigma. Don't fight against that as much as you can. What can you talk about? What can we talk about?
Just be open with it. Tell people if you have something, just tell people what it is. Talk about it.
Yeah. Say, hey, I'm having a real hard time today. You know? But if you're the friend and you know that that person with a mental illness having trouble asking for help, like if you're in a math class and you have a really hard math problem, and you're just like, you want to raise that hand, you want to ask, but then there's that vein in you that's like, oh, I can't, I don't want to embarrass myself, right? Don't embarrass yourself. We need to get beyond that for the individual as well. We need to find an easier way to ask for help. There are resources like NAMI that can help you with that. What are warning signs of suicide? Moving on, sorry, just like I said, this is new. What are warning signs of suicide? Signs of immediate help that are needed. If you see any of these with any of your peers or any of your family members, okay? Describing that they're not going to be there tomorrow. Being a burden to others, not having a reason to live. Giving away possessions, behaving recklessly. All signs that they need the help, and we need to be able to lend that helping hand. So, instead of just talking, we can take action immediately. Everybody knows 911 on their cell phones, right? Well, there's also the National Suicide Helpline, Lifeline. 800-273-TALK. Very, very valuable. But something that's a little bit more local, just heard about. Did anybody hear about Project TOW? It sounds really weird, doesn't it? Project TOW. I just read about this in the newspaper this week, so this is fresh. Two friends, they were up in the Doylestown area. They were out on the beach one day. One has suicidal thoughts, and the other one doesn't. And the one who had suicidal thoughts was saying, I've really had a bad week, and you weren't there for me. And the friend said, well, I didn't know, you never told me anything, you never asked for help. So they realized it's a really hard thing to raise that hand, right? To ask for that help, raise that hand from that math problem. Raise that hand and say, hey, I really need you right now, brother. I really need you. So what did they do? They came up with a code word. They texted each other, the person with the suicidal thoughts gave a code word to the other friend. Said, if I text you the word TOW, that means come here right now. Help me out. They just came up with the word TOW because they figured, okay, we all had toes. Works out for me. They created a smartphone app called Project TOW. Look it up. It's in the newspaper. Just talk about it. Anyway, moving on.
Asking someone, are you thinking about suicide, will not put thoughts of suicide in his or her mind. In fact, asking this direct question is important. There is hope and help. You can call 1-800-273-TALK or visit www.suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Suicide can be prevented.
So don't be alone. Don't feel like you're alone if you have a mental illness or you're a friend of one. As everybody raised their hands when I asked that question, if everybody knows of anybody, we're not alone. We're all here, okay? So, how do we make things better? These are typical things. Like diabetes, there are treatments for mental illnesses. With diabetes, what do you have to do in order to treat yourself? Take insulin. You have to continually monitor that, right? You have to monitor your blood levels and all that. With mental illness, that's there as well. You see a doctor, they'll find medications for you. There's therapies as well. Even the simplest things of pet therapy, group therapy, non-traditional. Medications. Now, what happens if a person with a mental illness doesn't get the treatment that they need?
Going insane.
What was that?
They're going insane. They're on meds.
Their symptoms get worse, right?
That's all they focus on is their meds.
Yeah, the meds are very, very important, right? And the therapy is necessary. So their symptoms get much, much worse. I don't necessarily say insane. I see where you're going with that. I personally think that the term insane and like the term crazy is another way of making that stigma stronger. See what I mean by that? Kind of like a negative term. But, moving on.
That's not.
Moving on. What are some ways that we can all live a better life? A happier life. Eat enough sleep. Exercise and eat healthy. Write and journal. Are these things that only a person with a mental illness can do? What's your favorite song?
There's a lot. Like genre of music and thrash metal.
Crash metal. Okay. Does that bring you up in the day if you've had a bad day? Yeah. What song brings you up if you've had a bad day? What was that? I couldn't hear.
Happy.
Happy. Well, that's the one everybody makes up happy, right?
That song is very depressing. Makes me happy. I get depressed when I hear that song.
It's very repetitive, isn't it? It doesn't really help me out. I'll tell you, for me, it's Duke Ellington. Duke Ellington, big band. I love that stuff. It really just peps me up every day. But all these activities are things that anybody can do. It helps you out. All right, moving on. Here's just a little list or a little picturette. All the celebrities, not all of them, but some celebrities that are dealing with mental illness right now. But they've been able, do we know them for their mental illness, or do we know them for being a celebrity? For being celebrities, for being famous, for being successful.
What do they have?
What's
What do they
Michael
have?
Phelps?
Michael Phelps, he's the most interesting one. If you think about it, he has all this energy.
The swimming dude.
It's excessive. He needs to go into the pool to swim. ADHD. When he was in school, he couldn't pay attention at all in school. So he went into the pool to get all that energy out. Okay? Do you have any other questions about specific ones?
John Mayer.
John Mayer and Emma Stone actually carry under are very similar. They have forms of panic disorder. So think about that. They're performers. Anxiety and panic disorder is involved with them. To be up there on stage and to sing and to deal with that, heart pounding, something else. Any other ones?
Owen Wilson.
Owen Wilson has had bouts with depression.
JFK.
And Buzz Aldrin as well with depression. JFK is ADHD. Has had. How can we help a friend? We talked about talking. We talk. Recognize the warning signs and encourage your friend to tell someone. Okay? Encourage her or him to follow the treatment plan. Okay? And include them in your plans. Stay positive, stay upbeat, find that song they love, put it on as your favorite song on your phone, and make sure it's ready whenever they're feeling down, right? Stand up for them. And about stigma. How can we, in this school, help reduce stigma? Any ideas? Guys? Yeah.
On a realistic scale, I don't think you can.
You don't think you can?
Nope.
Can do what?
Reduce stigma. That's your opinion. I personally think that the big issue coming out in schools right now that everybody's heard is bullying, right? We all know about what it means to see bullying happen in schools or in the community. If we can be advocates against bullying, then I think that's a way to reduce the stigma. If we can be advocates, yes.
I think we should inform people more about what mental illness is instead of just having a general idea about it. Because most people just generalize that it's like being crazy.
Understood, yeah. As long as the term of crazy is just out there, then people think, oh, that's just a major word for mental illness. No, it's not. I definitely agree. If you had every week a little like poster that went out and said, this is what it means to be depressed. This is what it means to be depressed. That's a great idea. You should really start bandwagoning that in this school. It'd be fantastic.
I
All right.
think this is a good start, like, we've never had anybody like you guys now speak
Yeah.
to the kids.
You are my friend. You are not a mental illness, because you cannot be defined by that, just as I cannot be defined by my race, gender, or sexuality. You can be defined by your strength, both literally and figuratively, and by your amazing sense of humor. You always know how to put a smile on my face. You can also be defined by your passion for music. There are endless definitions to who you are. Unfortunately, there are some people who would rather define us by what makes us different from them. However, you are more similar to me than many of those people are. I stand up for you because you deserve a lot better than you often endure. You are not your mental illness because that could have happened to anyone. You are uniquely you because of your character.
As I said, these videos are made by students in California. That last video won, I guess on the website, directingchange.org, they have a competition every year to see which video they'll put on this PowerPoint. And that video won out of all the ones that were submitted. I think it'd be great to see something from California move on into Pennsylvania. This here today is the first time we've ever done this in this state. So if you're inspired, go to directingchange.org. Anyway, to review, mental health conditions are medical illnesses. It's no one's fault that they have a mental illness or that the family's involved in that. Environment, you want to know the warning signs. No one is alone in this room or in this community. Recovery is possible, there is hope, and you have the power to end this stigma. That's our website, guys, NAMI.org. And like you have bibliographies, we have to have one too. As I said, we're here to share our lived experiences. I shared mine a little bit about my mother and what I dealt with while I was in school. But I have another friend here that would be willing to share those stories. Give a hand for Chris.
Many times you keep turning that light on, my eyes still kill me.
I'm sorry, every time I do it, I think, oh, I can't move down.
I'm on tape, so I gotta move down to be in camera.
Wait a moment, Christopher, for a second. Everybody in your folders, there is a feedback page. And it is very important that you fill that out. Give us all the information. If you don't like Chris's hat, if you don't like my shoes, if you don't like my voice, tell us. Be
I don't
honest.
like my hat too bad.
All right.
But,
Sorry.
thanks, man. I forgot where I was going. Yeah, see,
Hi, I'm Chris.
the light turned on. Hi, I'm Chris. But yeah, the light turned on. I'm half asleep. Debbie woke me up this morning at 4 o'clock to get ready to come in here today, a little bit earlier than you guys did. And I was up till 1:30 watching the Phillies actually win a game for once. So I didn't get too much sleep. So I'm a little tired. I'm starting to wake up. I think this is what, the fifth period of the day? Seventh? See, I'm still out of it. So yeah, I'm Chris, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about mental illness in my life and what that means to me. Before I really tell you about myself, though, I'm going to back up a little bit and tell you about my first encounter with a mental illness. I was about 5 or 6 years old. I shared a bedroom with my older brother. He's a little bit older than I am. I'm 28. He's 32 now. And I remember I was asleep one night, and I woke up at like 2, 3 in the morning, and I opened my eyes, and he's standing over me watching me sleep. And it scared the heck out of me. It's something like you'd see in like a horror movie or something like that. Really weird and creepy and scary. I didn't know what was going on, so I woke up, ran to my mom, and said, "Hey, Mom, he's watching me sleep. What's going on?" Long story short, what was going on was he was suffering from schizophrenia and he was hallucinating. He saw a demon sitting on my shoulder and thought he was going to get me, so he was looking out, just trying to protect me. That was the first time I've ever dealt with mental illness. My father actually also suffers from schizophrenia and alcoholism as well. So that's where mental illness first started impacting my life and where it first started to show up. But myself, I'm Chris, I'm 28, and I have two different mental illnesses. One of them you might have noticed me sitting in the corner unscrewing Debbie's seat, playing with my phone, is ADHD. Always on the go, I'm always moving, bouncing around in my seat. Can't really sit still, but that's just who I am. That's how I've been my entire life. I don't know any different. I was probably 3 days old by the time they diagnosed me, which in reality I was like 5 or 6. But to me, this is who I am. Another one is bipolar disorder, and you guys are about 16, 17, right? I was probably about 14. I remember I was sitting in my 9th grade science class at William Tennant, and I was sitting in class, and I was never a creative kid in school. I was never, I liked the art class. I liked to draw. But I wasn't one to sit there and write. I wasn't one to I just wasn't creative. But I found myself writing a poem, and by the end of the period, I had this 9-page poem, and it was just morbid, depressing, awful things about suicide, about hurting my family, my friends, my mom and my dad. I hated my sister, my stepdad, my brother, everybody. I just hated everybody, and I didn't know why I wrote it. It was just something that popped into my head, and I just kind of wrote it down. I went home that day from school, and my mom had seen it. She went through my school bag for whatever reason and seen it, and she was freaked out. She's like, "What the heck's going on here? Is Chris going through the same thing his brother's going through?" It set my family up in a panic, and next thing I know, I'm at the doctor's office, a therapist's office, and they diagnosed me with bipolar. To me, I was fine. I didn't know, I'm not bipolar, what is that? I'm not crazy, I don't have this issue, I'm totally okay. Leave me alone, let me play my game in my room and go away. And that's where I was at with it. Over the next few years, my behavior started getting more and more strange. I started acting out, not necessarily in school, though classrooms like this, I don't, I did well in school in the aspect that I didn't really get in trouble too much. My grades weren't the best. I was actually failing a lot of different classes, but I was always doing really well in tests, really well in school. It was just, at the time, just school wasn't a concern to me. I know a lot of my friends growing up, they were concerned about proms, school dances, homecomings, SATs. To me, I was worried about, the cops going to show up at my house tonight when I get in a fight with my stepdad. So I struggled there a lot. But as time went on, like I said, I gradually got worse. And I ended up inside of a mental hospital. And to me, it was really scary. I didn't know what it was, but as years went on, I struggled it more and more. And it got to the point where things weren't going well at home at all. I was fighting with my stepdad every day. I was fighting with my mom. I wasn't getting along with anyone, my sister, my brother. And I was eventually tossed out of my home. What happened with that was, I remember I was sitting in my last period of my English class at Tenet. I was in school. I was sitting there, and I get a call down to the office. Now, at this time, I was living with a friend, and staying with my friend. I get a call down to the office, and I go down there, and I see my therapist in the office, and I'm like, "Well, what in the heck are you doing here? I've worked with you for 2 years, and now you're showing up at my school to take me somewhere? What's going on, man?" So he takes me to the hospital that I was seeing, where I saw my doctor at on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. And it takes me to this meeting room, and inside this meeting room is a big round table, and my mom's sitting at one end of the table. Next to her is my stepdad, and on the other side of her is my biological father. And my biological father, he lived in Florida. So I knew right there that he drove 1,000 miles to be at this meeting. Something serious is about to go down. And within 12 hours, I was in the back of his car on my way to move to Florida. And for me, you guys could imagine how that is if you found out at the end of school today that you were moving away 1,000 miles, how that would feel. To me, it was awful. I didn't get to say goodbye to my friends. I didn't get to say goodbye to what little support I did have in my life. So it built up resentment even more towards my family, and just solidified my argument that, this is why my life sucks. This isn't my fault. This isn't anything I did. And I moved to Florida, and I didn't want to be there, but after a while, things actually started going good for me. I was in school. I was in high school. I was very well liked by all the kids there. I made a lot of friends very quickly. things were awesome. But my dad, he also suffered from an illness with schizophrenia, and the way he dealt with his problems wasn't through therapy or medicine or any of that. He binge drank, and he would get drunk nonstop, and it was ugly. Unfortunately, I had to leave. It got to the point where he was drunk so often that I was the one taking care of him, and I was being his parent instead of him taking care of me. So I came back to Pennsylvania, and I stayed here for another year or two. And when I came back, things were actually going pretty well. I was getting along with my mom and my stepdad. Things were working out. But I know with me, just like my dad, I mean, unless you really focus on the problems and you address them head on, you can't expect things to automatically fix themselves. And that's what happened. By the time I was 18, I was thrown out of my house again, staying with a friend just like I was before. But this time I was really into smoking pot every day. I was really into drinking and partying. And well, all that stuff was fun at the time, but it also cost money, which I didn't have. So I got the idea in my head that I needed money quick, and to steal money from the place I was working was the best possible thing I could come up with, and that's what I did. And within a couple weeks, I was caught, police showed up, put me in Bucks County Prison for a day. Now that scared me enough that I was like, I don't ever want to do this again. I got out of jail, and I decided, I was like, I got to do something. I got to turn my life around. At this point, I was thrown out of where I was staying because I got locked up, and all my friends were getting ready to go off to college. I'm like, I have nowhere to go. I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't go with my family. Can't stay with my friends. They're going to school. So I went back to Florida. At this time, I really wanted to get my life together and move forward. And I started to. I got a full-time job down there. I started saving a little bit of money. I finally got my driver's license. I got my own car, and things were going good. Unfortunately for my dad, it didn't last very long for him either. He was sober for years at this time, and then once I moved back down there, the pressure got too much for him, and he started drinking again. And this time he was physically violent towards me, and I decided to remove myself from the situation. I had him put in the rehab one day, and before he got out, I was already on my way back to Pennsylvania. My dad did get out of rehab. He called my mom, I remember, and he said, hey, where's Chris at? And she said, well, he's about 20 feet behind me on 95. We're in Virginia right now, and we're heading back to PA. And my dad said to my mom, he says, my boys have left me. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just going to drink myself to death. And within 3 months, that's exactly what he did. It was May 31st, 2005, I got the phone call that he had died. His body just basically shut down with all the alcohol in his system. And that was really hard for me. The last thing I said to my dad was when he called, he called after he got out of rehab to find out where I was. And I said, F you, don't talk to me. Call me when you're sober. And I hung the phone up on him. So that was tough for me. And I was like, I wish I would have handled things a little bit differently with my dad, but I know right now he would want me to move forward, so this is what I got to do. And I started working at rebuilding my life and getting myself back together. And I came back to PA, got my own apartment, started working a job up here, and started actually doing good for myself. And it was really cool. I ended up moving in with a friend for a little bit, jumping around jobs, not every so often. Okay. Just making sure the time. But I started working towards some goals that I had in my life. I did end up getting laid off and was out of work for a little while, and my mom was doing some mental health work throughout the county and had said, hey Chris, why don't you come do this meeting with me? And I'm like, nah, I don't want to do that. And then she promised me Burger King, so I couldn't say no to that. I wanted free food. So I went to this meeting with her, and I was participating in some discussion about what should happen to kids after they get out of the hospital or, a juvenile probation situation. And I chimed in. Somebody said something stupid, and I didn't like it. And I chimed in, and I started talking. Well, lucky for me, there was a director for this company that took kids that have gone through the similar situations that I had and paired them with other youth that are going through the same thing. And I ended up working for this company for upwards of almost 3 years. And one of the coolest things I remember, I'll never forget it for the rest of my life, is that one of the first kids I worked with, I actually had a meeting with his mom, him, his counselors, and his dad and his brothers and sisters in the very same room that I had a meeting with my family when I was his age, where I saw my dad, my stepdad, and my mom before I moved to Florida. And I remember sitting in that room on the other side of the table this time saying, I finally beat this mental illness thing. I'm not, I'm cured. But just like my dad, what I didn't realize is that I'm never going to be cured. and I have issues that I have to deal with and adjust for daily. That being said, you know, at this point in time, I was dating a girl, almost 8 years. I was with her. She's my best friend, my other half. I wanted to marry her, but I didn't realize that the problems I had with depression were affected other parts of my life, namely her. And it got so much for her to deal with on a daily basis that she told me that, hey, I can't do this anymore, and I gotta go. This isn't working out between us, and she left. And for me, my life pretty much crumbled. My whole life was like, oh, what the heck's going on? And I started binge drinking. I was showing up to work drunk every day, going to meetings with kids, wasted, smelling of alcohol, and I lost my job there. Fast forward 3 years till today. I'm doing much better now. I'm actively trying to help out and get myself back in the field, working with kids again and doing stuff with NAMI. But I know one of the big things, like you see in the video, and I know a few of you guys said, with things that help you, music for one is something that I enjoy and I love. If I'm having a bad day, I'm in a mood, throw on my loud, angry music or go to a concert, I'm happy. I'm having a rough time, turn on the Xbox, the PS4, watch the Phillies play or whatever. That's what makes me happy. And it may be different from me than it is to you or you. It's just the way it works. I know one of the big things, just like they said in the slideshow here, this is a new one, so I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. But I know when I'm having a rough time, and my friends don't need to fix me. They know, some of them know I have issues, some of them don't. Just being there for me. I know last week I had a fight with my girlfriend and I was miserable all night, and my buddy walks up to me, he's like, oh, you don't look too thrilled. I'm like, man, leave me alone. He's like, don't be like that, let's go play Call of Duty and chill out. Okay, let's go. That's all I needed. That made me feel like I had somebody to go to, and I knew that whatever was going on with me, it was going to be all right, and I had support. That being said, everybody here, NAMI, we're here because mental illness affects our lives, not because we're professionals or any of that sort. Rainey shared about how his mom had issues with bipolar disorder. I just shared my story with you, and this lady sitting there clicking the computers, the executive director of NAMI. And the reason she's the executive director of NAMI is because she raised my brother, myself, and dealt with my dad for, how old am I?
Wait, that's your mom?
That's my mom.
Oh.
So Debbie, I get to call her Debbie, and she can't yell at me, but she's my mom. Thank you, Mom. But like Rainey said earlier at the beginning of, before I started speaking, we've been doing this presentation for a couple of years now, but this slideshow today is brand new for us. So and the feedback papers you have are also new. So any feedback you guys have is greatly appreciated. We take all the criticism, whether it's good or bad, and we try to adjust it. So maybe the next class afterwards today, or the class we have Monday, or the class we have next year, we might do a little bit better. But if you guys have any questions, you can either ask myself, Rainey, my mom. If you don't feel comfortable asking us in this kind of setting, I believe there's a business card. There's a business card in the folders with an email address and a phone number for it.
And the folders are for you to keep.
With us.
Yes, you keep the folders. All they want back is that white sheet. Before you leave, you cannot leave.
What's that?
until it's-
Yeah, pass it up or drop it off, it doesn't matter. And you don't have to write your name on it. Somebody will letter your name. We don't need that.